Hi guys, welcome or welcome back to my channel. I'm Sasha. So today's video is a book review. Finally, the applause in the back. No, so yesterday I started my 75 book. It took me a while because I was so overwhelmed with things, and I was finally able to sit down and structure out certain things. So now I kind of have other things properly structured. So yesterday I started my 75 booked, and I ended up reading one particular book, and I actually read the whole entire book I kind of went over, but that's fine. If you do that, that's fine. So usually if very briefly, the 75 books is where you read for an hour and a half, which is two 45-minute reading blocks. You can read a physical book, you can listen to an audiobook, an ebook, and then they say that you are not supposed to read in bed for at least one of those. I do not read in bed at all, so that was not hard. They do say that you should drink water. They claim that you should drink an entire bottle of water, but honestly, I get so enthralled in the book that I don't, so I just make like a pretty my 24-ounce water bottle, and I'll just drink that throughout the whole entire reading process. But do what works for you, babe. And then that's kind of, it, and you just read for 75 particular days. And yes, you can switch off books. You can read two books in one day, two different books, whatever. I just chose to read this particular one book because it wasn't super long, and it was a really good book. So I kind of wanted to keep reading it. So I will be reviewing said book. And I have my reading journal, which I have here. So the book I read was Psychomaniak, and it is by Alice Melmoth, I believe Melmoth. So I apologize if I'm slaughtering their last name. So again, I read this on my Kindle. I don't listen to audiobooks, and I don't really have a lot of physical books in the this particular genre. And again, this is a male book. It's a dark psychological thriller. If you choose to read the book, I will say that the romance is up to you. I did not see any romance. Sorry, y'all, one of my nails broke, so I need to go get it done. It was not a romance to me. The happily ever after was also kind of subjective. I would say it did have a bit of a happily ever after for a certain reason. I'm going to try not to spoil the overall book for you. One thing I will say is there are many, many trigger warnings you want to be aware of. There is essay, there is grape, child, I wrote it down. There's a lot of graphic violence, there's like psychological violence, there's just a lot of that going on. There is kidnapping elements. There is some red rum. Not necessarily on page, but it's definitely alluded to, and there are some things. So again, keep that in mind if you are very sensitive to these particular triggers. Do not read the book. Okay. And yes, it is, the author did a good job of bringing that up in her trigger warnings. I know some authors don't do that. They don't provide you with trigger warnings, and that can be a little jarring for some people. Sorry, I keep hitting my table. I don't have triggers, so I can read some books with some heavy topics. But anyways, dang, I'm over here smudging the writing. So the book follows Ethan. He is a private detective he was hired by this family to locate their missing son, their son who had went missing. He was a college student. They said he was not the kind of kid to just go missing, and, that he would reach out to somebody, leave a note, call, whatever. So as Ethan was doing his research, he had found out that the young boy was gay and would frequent certain gay clubs. And so he went to these clubs to try to ask questions, figure things out. And that's when everybody kept telling him about like this guy who he ended up talking to and leaving, and he was driving like a silver Subaru or something like that. So one night Ethan happened to see that particular car and was able to follow the person to his house, and that is when we meet Nordal Hassani. Now, we never ever like really get Nordal's point of view, but in reality we don't need it. You don't need it. We know that this character is a red rummer. He's a serial red rummer. So we know this. It's pretty much kind of explained to you very, very early on. So that's not really a spoiler. But what ends up happening is Ethan gets himself captive by Hassani and is subject to, as I mentioned before, he is subjected to, SA, rape, physical violence, psychological, mental, the whole gamut. And at first, Ethan is fighting it, kind of like, I'm going to get out of here. But then eventually, it's not like he develops Stockholm syndrome. I don't, after reading the book, there might have been, I'm not going to say that there was, but it was also something else. It was also this sense of Ethan realizing, I'm not getting out of this, so what can I do? And also other factors also lead me to believe that it wasn't fully that. Because again, there was like no romance. There was like this, I'm trying to think how to say it. Like there was this endearment that Ethan over time developed to Hassani, but it did not cross over into this beautiful love story of how we're gonna live. Again, like I said, Hassani was a damn serial red rummer, okay? So no, there was gonna be no love in this club. But it was just, you're seeing this kind of development where Ethan is just kind of grappling with his own mind. Also finding out that Ethan had a very tumultuous childhood. His father was an alcoholic and was also very abusive to him and his older brother, specifically to Ethan because he was the youngest. So it was almost like also being captive and being held in a dark basement. He started cycling through these nightmares of kind of reliving things that he went through in his childhood. And then over time, he didn't really say much to Hassani. And then over time, he would start trying to like talk to him. And at first, yes, he did want to escape. He thought, okay, if I can be friends with him and escape, maybe I can get out, whatever that case may be. But, in reality, it just, after a while, he had endured something happened to him. Hassani had pretty much harmed him in a bad way, to where at that point in time, it showed to Ethan, like, you're not getting out of this, you're not getting out of this. You're pretty much, you're stuck. And that's when he just realized, like, okay, fuck it. If I can't get out of this situation, the least I can do is try to get to know this person. So he would usually try to like have conversations with Hassani. And at first Hassani was kind of like, and he's like, bruh, you already messed me up. I just want to talk, and he did have like a fear of the dark because again, his nightmares would just come and come and come. So he would ask him to like leave a light or like a candle down there so he at least wasn't shrouded in darkness, because again, he would have these nightmares. He would cry. It was really intense, an intense book. And you did feel sorry for Ethan because as you were getting these flashbacks of his childhood and then what Hassani was putting him through, you were kind of like, damn, like he going through a lot, you know. And again, it was constant. Like the essay was constant, you know. And it's funny because like in my journal, it's asking about the spice level, and I'm like, I can't really give that a rating because this was not consensual spice, so I left that blank. Um, but it happens often. Now there are, I mean, again, it is on page. Um, it is pretty intense. That's why I said again, you know, understand that it's there. It's not like fade to black. It's not off page. It's on page. Um, Sometimes it's better than most, but it's throughout the book. Pretty there. The only thing like you don't really, and there's only like it's only happening between them even when like Ethan is flashing back to like a relationship he had with his ex-girlfriend, you know, um because Ethan kept kind of holding on to this sense of I'm straight because you know Hassani would want him to do other things and he's like, yeah, I'm not gay. And so it was just this power struggle for a hot second. And then um kind of a spoiler. I know I'm probably not going to edit the word spoiler in, so it's going to be a spoiler right here. Throughout Ethan's captivity, Hassani ended up developing feelings for Ethan, like grew to love him, even though he was a serial red rummer and he was a serial assayer. He just grew to love Ethan, and he believes it was because, you know, Ethan was not his typical victim. He was not a gay man. You know, he wasn't just in it for something, you know, specific. He was in it trying to find out what happened to a missing college student, and then kind of ended up in Hassani's spider web, so to speak. So, and I believe also because of the fact that Ethan would also try to get to speak to, or like get to know him, talk to him, you know, did not want to die, which again, even though I'm sure the others begged as well, it didn't matter. But with Ethan, it was just something different. And then that's where Hassan developed a relationship with him. And so he started giving him kind of like a little bit free reign where he could come upstairs and, you know, be in the kitchen and be in the living room and all these other factors. But like I said, after the one incident where Ethan did, you know, attempt to leave and Hassani, you know, caused him some pretty serious harm, Ethan just was broken down. And he had been captive, I believe, for like a year, like almost a year. But because he was, you know, a private detective and he didn't have many friends and things of that nature, he, nobody was going to be looking for him, you know. And that also was like that was like the hardest pill for him to swallow, realizing like, damn, I don't have friends. I don't have, you know, like my parents aren't going to look for because his parents had passed away. And then there's a major twist with his brother, which I will not, what's that word I'm looking for? I won't like ruin that or anything. But again, there's just so many factors in there. So that's when it really hit him hard. And this was probably a few months into his captivity. Like, damn, nobody's going to be looking for me. Nobody's going to put out a missing persons because I'm, you know, I work alone. I don't have colleagues. I don't have friends. I don't, you know, my ex-girlfriend doesn't want to deal with me because, you know, so many factors. And so it stung. And that was also what made him gravitate more to Hassani, because for him, it's like, well, shoot, if I don't have anybody that's going to be looking for me, let me at least get to know this man over here. And that's kind of what ended up happening. So I don't want to give you guys the entire book. I think it is a really good book, despite the heavy trigger warnings. but I do think it's a good book. It's funny because I actually, after I finished it, I had to go back to one part in the book, and I was like, oh, okay. But so I liked that, that little moment when I got to the end of the book and I was reading it again, and I was like, wait a minute, hold on, let me go back. So that is kind of what made me just say, well played. Really good book, Alice. Really good book. Well played, ma'am. Well played. Um, like I said, I will say it is a happily ever after only because this I can kind of give away because you probably see it, but Ethan does not get red rummed. So to me, that is kind of like a happily ever after because there were times where you really thought, like, is Hassani going to just crack, even though he said, he wasn't going to, he said he was in love with Ethan. Is he going to just snap? But that is kind of one thing, but it's when you get to that certain parts towards the end of the book, you're like, And I thought it was a good pace. It was only like 200, a little over 200 pages. And I thought the pacing was nice. For me, I was actually fine that we did not ever get any points of views from Hassani, because in reality, I felt like it wouldn't have added anything to the book. We knew who he was, and she did a good job of whenever Ethan would ask questions and talk to Hassani, that the questions were answered to where you didn't feel like, okay, we're confused, we're missing something. You got enough. To me, I felt like I got enough. I felt like I got what I needed. I believe it was just very, I loved like this slow descent that we saw with Ethan. For one, I love that it wasn't this immediate thing. Have you ever read a book where someone's kidnapped and within a month they're like, oh my God, I love you, or the typical Stockholm syndrome, and you're like, oh my God. That's also why I don't read male-female books, because whenever the female captor like is kidnapped, she be already fucking hard eyes by a week, ma'am. So sorry. But in this book, and I've read other books where there has been a kidnapped character, which I'll probably redo another one of those, which is Stanya. Dig your grave, call the coroner. Yes, yeah. Anyways, so I like that we were just kind of in Ethan's mindset. These constant flashbacks of, his relationship with his ex-girlfriend, his flashbacks of his brother and how his brother took care of him and loved on him, flashbacks of his parents and how his dad, again, was very abusive and harmed him, and how his mother was just kind of like, she too was abused, so she would not help her own children. And you're seeing this. So you're seeing this, this slow descent. And so whenever he would kind of come out of these nightmares, it just showed him more and more like, I have nobody. And for him, it was, all I have is Hassani, because I can't get out of here. So that's why I said it wasn't like a typical Stockholm syndrome of, oh my God, I love him. It was more of, I don't have anybody that I can talk to. There's nobody else down here captive with me, which is, again, what made him start talking or like asking questions to Hassani. Yeah, again, yes, at first it was, he had an ulterior motive, but then afterwards it became like, I ain't got shit else to do, so let me just talk to this man. And that's kind of what it was. It was just like this slow buildup of comfort. I'll say that Ethan developed a comfort for Hassani, because again, he'd bring him food and all these things. He would, he started allowing him books, and again, like I said, he would bring him upstairs and let him watch TV or listen to music. He'd help him cook, so many things. So it wasn't, again, that's what I said, it wasn't like this beautiful thing of, oh my God, I love you, this is my man, my captor. It was for Ethan, it was, this is all I have. I've been here for, at this point, over a year. So let me just, it was almost kind of like Ethan decided in that moment to just make the best of a bad situation. That's the only way, that's like the best way I can put it. Um, I did give it 4 stars because I really enjoyed the book. I think it is a really good read if you are okay with the triggers. Um, but I think it's a great read. It is on Kindle. And again, the book is Psychomaniac. So I highly, highly recommend that you read it if you can get past the triggers. And I will see you all when I read my next book. I probably won't read a full book next time, but it may be like a partial review or something. We'll see. But anyways, that was day 1 of 75 booked of me reading Psychomaniac. So do not forget to subscribe and like this video and comment if you read the book and if you have your own thought process about it, if you believe that it was fully Stockholm Syndrome or whatever. I definitely would love to hear from you about this. And I hope to see you all in the next one. Bye.